Okay. And we're looking for, did you get the packet, sir? Okay, so this is the previous notes. This is the homework we turned in. There's the first focus activity. There was the very first assignment. This is the notes we're on. Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Okay, so I hope everybody had a good weekend. The goal this week is to go ahead and continue with our sets and logic unit. We should be able to begin. We should be able to begin probability before the end of the week. It'll start off with some simple probability, and then we'll get a little more involved with what's known as conditional probability. But just a couple things. Let's see here. If you are wanting to retake that Intro to Sets quiz that we had last week, which several people have already done, tomorrow morning is going to be your deadline. The homework you just picked up, I think I posted that on the website as being due Thursday. Pretty sure I went ahead and said that's due Thursday. I'll double check on that, but we're going to go with Thursday for right now. In exactly 1 week, you're going to have your first exam of the grading period. Remember, this is only 5 weeks long, and we're already in the second week. So, if you're having trouble, if you have any questions, any concerns, definitely come on in. Let me help you out. The retakes, remember, in order to retake, you have to have the assignment for that particular quiz done. The only thing I'm going to go ahead and start asking in this grading period, please make sure that you have it turned in before or by the time you take the retake. Okay, because there was quite a few times in the first 6 weeks, and not necessarily in here, but people would do a retake, then I'd go into the grade book, and they wouldn't have the homework, so I'd have to go hunt them down. Hey, where's this assignment? So please, I'm not going to do that again. If you don't turn in the assignment and you do the retake, I'm basically just going to file the retake, and it's kind of gone. Hey, at the time, yes, but after the fact, no. It's got to be by that time. So if you walk in the morning at 7:45 and say, I'd like to retake, here's the assignment, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so by or before. All right, I think that's all I got. Should be a pretty normal week, except for Friday. This class is going to be affected by something. What's happening on Friday during 6th? We have another drill. What kind of drill? Fire drill. There we go. So we're probably going to be losing a good 20 minutes if the other fire drills are any indication. So like I said, the good news is we'll probably be on probability by that time. We're just going to keep going as far as we can. As far as the other years, we are a little ahead of schedule. So losing a little time like that is not a big problem. But when we go outside, we have our fire drill. Remember, you're going to go down these stairs, leave your belongings, of course, go right past the nurse's office to the sidewalk on 19th Street. But then where do we go from there? There you go. Go ahead and walk to the east parking lot over there by the big trailer, about where the band practices after school, and make sure that you come find me. If you were to stay together as a group, that would be fantastic. But I'm going to be taking roll on the phone as part of that Navigate Prepared. So please come find me so I can know that you're safe and everything's good to go. All right. I think that's everything I've got. Quite a bit of information. Does anybody have any questions? We recently turned in our outlines. How are our projects going? You don't want to talk about it. Okay. Now, we're still a couple of months out, but the next big date for your internal assessments is on Thursday, December what? Thursday, December 12th. That's when your rough draft's going to be due. So at that point, you need to have written your paper, collected all your data, of course, chosen the strategies, commented on those, basically whatever is necessary pertaining to your topic. All right. How long of a paper are we talking here? Whatever meets the requirements? Well, actually, in here, we don't have any set requirements. I think anything at most, and this is just me personally, I would say at most 9 or 10 pages if you feel it's going to take you that long. The only reason I say that is because in years past I've had some people write a novel. I had a couple last year. One was 23 pages and one was 26 pages. Okay. Not that I'm not unwilling to read it. I mean, I will read every word you write down on your paper. I just think if you need to use 26 pages, well, maybe we can summarize that a little bit or something. Hey, Reese.
So what's about like the standard? You said
I'd say between 8 and 10 at most. I mean, there is no standard here that we're looking for. I would definitely say more than 5. Okay. I mean, I know that's a big range, but I'm thinking you should be able to get it done definitely by 10. But if your paper is only like 2 or 3 pages long, maybe in that case we do need to go ahead and elaborate a little more, something like that. Okay, Joe? There is no word limit. There is no word limit. Thankfully, I do not have to count out the number of words in each essay. You know, I'm not an English teacher. I would say, what's the standard, size 11?
That's what it comes out.
Or is it 12 now?
They want us to turn it in.
They want you to turn it in 12?
12 font times 0 double space.
Okay, I'd say that's perfect. I'd say that's perfect. Okay. All right. Now, and I am going to go ahead and tell you this as we get closer. You know, please make sure that it's typed up, have it printed. Go ahead and give me a hard copy because this is your rough draft. So I'm going to be marking on it. I'm going to be probably asking you leading questions, commenting on things. You know, maybe I would do this. Basically, just giving you input. But as always, it's just my personal opinion. If you ultimately think, you know what, I can do it without that, please feel free to do so. All right. I'm just kind of here to be like your advisor, your guide. All right, good, good, good. So a lot of material today to talk about. How'd that quiz go? Pretty easy? Nice. Okay, good, good, good. Glad to hear it.
I not feel confident, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
There you go. We're excited to see how we did. Okay. Yes.
For intersection, is true necessary that it can.
For intersection, they both have to be true, yes.
Okay, so if it's true,
Okay.
false.
Now and I heard a lot of people talking about this at the beginning. Remember, intersection looks like this. So they both have to be true at the same time in order to have a true statement. If you're talking about a union, this is the what? This is the inclusive, so there's no bar below it. So this means one or the other or both. Okay, so as long as there's one true statement, that's going to have a true outcome. What about if I do put a bar? That's the
One or the other.
exclusive, one or the other, but not both. Good, 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 good. And what we started talking about Thursday was implication and equivalence. Now, we haven't quite gotten to equivalence yet, but implication, these are your if-then statements. And we have several other ways we could say it, particularly if-then is what we're going to focus on. Let's talk about the behavior. So if I have two propositions, P and Q, or as we started looking in this particular lesson, P is the antecedent and Q is the consequent, okay? I want to show the implication. If P, then Q. So because I only have two propositions, how many rows would I have? 4. Okay. So we're going to go true, true, false, false. For that first column, we always take the first half of the rows, make them true. The second half of those rows, we go ahead and make them false. And then we start to alternate because we want every conceivable outcome. And then we go true, false, true, false. Okay. Now, what was the only one we had to be careful of with implication? Only the true false. This is the only one that had a false outcome. If they're both true, okay, it is true. If it's a false true, it's true. Now, you might be looking at this other one and thinking, well, there's one true, one false. Order matters. Okay, so it has to be a truth first and then a false. If it's false, then true, it's true. Or if they're both false, that's a true as well. Okay, and I know that sounds confusing, but if you're having trouble, come on in, let me help you. If you were gone, take a look at those videos and then come on in with questions or at least look at the notes so I can help you get caught up. And then we went through several examples where implication related to subsets back in an earlier lesson. And this is basically what we did on Friday because there were so many people out. We talked about the converse. We talked about the inverse and the contrapositive. And then we just had a couple of statements here that we went ahead and wrote out. So the implication is just the if P then Q. Now the converse was to do what with your two propositions? You simply switch them. So the converse is if Q then P. Now the inverse, you don't switch them, but what do? You negate them. So if not P, then not Q. That's the inverse. Now the contrapositive, means to do both. We not only switch the propositions P and Q, but then we negate them. So if not Q, then not P. And then we had this statement here that we went ahead and wrote just several times. And then really that's all we did on Friday as far as the lesson. I think, didn't we do some problems on the assignment? Yeah. And then we had some time at the end. So yeah, it was a good day. It was a good day. All right. So now let's talk about equivalence. Okay, these are your if and only if statements. So you'll notice it's a double arrow here. So P is equivalent to Q. Okay. Now the only way that this statement is going to be true is if both P implies Q is true and the converse Q implies P is true. All right, so both of those have to be true in order for us to have a true statement on equivalence. What you're going to notice that this equivalence is related to P equals Q in sets. Okay, so graphically we're looking at the same group. Okay, well you'll notice I put in a couple of extra columns here. I'm going to go ahead. In order to show equivalence, we have to show these two statements. So P implies Q, and then Q implies P. The only way the equivalence gets a true statement is if both of these are going to be true. All right, but remember, order matters. Okay, so let's do the first one. I want to go from P, then Q. Okay, I want to go in this direction. What was the only one that we had to worry about? Only the true false. Okay, so can somebody tell me in this first column what I should have? For P implies Q. It would be a true. True, false, that's our first false. What about a false true? That's true, and false, false. That's a true. Okay. Now I want to go in the opposite direction. So remember, order matters. This is now if Q, then P. Okay. So what row do I have to be very careful of? First, second, third, or fourth? Third. It's because now that I'm going in this direction, if Q, then P, it has to be true and then false to be false. Okay. So those other three should be true. This is a true, this is a true, this is a true. So based on what we have here, can anybody tell me from top to bottom, what's the behavior of equivalence?
False.
I heard true, false, false, true. There you go. The only way equivalence can get a true statement is if the implication in both directions is true. Okay, these are your if and only if statements. All right, and the example we have here, I'll buy you an ice cream if and only if, and I'm going to go ahead and abbreviate this. You've seen that in math notation before? Or does anybody want me to actually write out if and only if? Okay, but that's what IFF means, if and only if. So I will buy you an ice cream if and only if you get an A on your math exam. But also, think about if they're both false. If I negate both of them, I will not buy you an ice cream if and only if you do not get an A on your math exam. You see how that can still be a true statement? Okay, one without the other. Is everybody okay with that? Logic? Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at example number 9. Okay, Madrid is in Spain. Spain is in Europe. Write the equivalence statement for the above propositions. Okay, so I want equivalence. When you hear that, that's the if and only if. So can anybody tell me what I should write? There you go. Madrid is in Spain. This time I'll write it out. If and only if Spain is in Europe. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plains. You guys remember hearing that stuff before? Okay, there you go. All right. Now this next one, I'm actually going to go ahead and skip past it. This is kind of like a proof of sorts. I'm not going to worry about this one. It actually is filled out in the notes online. So if you are curious about that, you are not going to be responsible for it. If anybody's curious, you can take a look, or come ask me a question. I'm not going to worry about discussing it because we have other things we need to move on to. So just go straight to 11. Okay, construct the truth tables for the following compound propositions. Okay, what's that sideways L mean? Okay, that's the negation. Okay, and you could also have it as that little curvy symbol right there, the tilde. All right. So I'm negating P. So if it goes true, true, false, false, I'm going to go false, false, true, true. False, false, true, true. There we go. Okay, now take a few seconds. What we discussed at the very beginning of the class, fill out the behavior for the intersection. Okay, remember this is the key word and. You see that symbol. This is and the intersection. Oh my God, is it already 1:55? Man, time flies when you're having fun, right? Oh my God. Well, sorry, I heard my phone buzz, and my wife sent me 17 messages.
You're in trouble.
No, they're all posters of comic book movies.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. 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 I'm sorry. The text is because my mother-in-law is staying with us. She lives in Snyder. No, actually, it's not. It's not that scenario. My mother-in-law is actually pretty cool. Sometimes. Notice I covered the mic when I said that. But she's staying with us because she just had gallbladder surgery, and she's an older woman, so she doesn't want to go all the way back to Snyder because everybody lives in and around Lubbock, so that's a fair distance away in case something happens. But apparently, she just told my wife she has not seen Batman versus Superman or Aquaman.
Oh, wow.
I heard it's terrible, so I.
Which one was terrible?
Which one?
Well,
Aquaman was really good.
both were terrible.
What?
I've seen Batman vs Superman, and it was awful.
That was a good movie. Now, don't get me okay. This like never happens in here, but we're going to talk about it for a second because we never get off topic.
Never.
Okay. I will agree. There are things about BVS that I would have changed. Like one, I think they completely underused one of the characters. Who'd they kill at the very beginning of the movie? Who was Superman's best friend? Jimmy Olsen. That was Jimmy Olsen at the beginning who got killed with Lois Lane. That was he's a big part of the Superman universe, and I was really surprised that they did that. But two, probably the bigger issue I had with it was Batman was a serial killer. I mean, he killed a lot of people in that movie. And he did in the beginning when Batman was first introduced, but that's not the Batman that I grew up with. Now, those aside, that's not enough to make me say that it was a bad movie. I enjoyed it. I personally would have thought it would have been better if they'd released the extended version in theaters, because that went into a little more detail as to why Batman and Superman would have fought to begin with. Okay, but Batman is suspicious of everybody. Batman doesn't play well with others. So, if you have this entity, which is basically viewed as a god by many people on Earth, he's going to be very suspicious of it. Because if Superman were to turn evil, and he has from time to time, he could do some serious damage. In fact, Batman is the only one that Superman has trusted to hold on to some kryptonite in case he does go bad. So, I don't know. And then Aquaman, Aquaman's a character that I'll admit has been a joke for like the past couple of decades, for a very long time. Just the outfit, he's talking to a fish, all that kind of stuff. Like the Justice League is going to go off, hey guys, you need help? Well, if we're going to fight a shark, we'll call you, but otherwise, thanks, we don't need you. But they did a really good job, I think, of kind of making the character, okay. I covered the mic. Anyways, okay. Yeah, it's still going to be, I'm still going to get a parent email tomorrow. How dare you? Okay. My child has never heard that language before. Okay. Anyways, can anybody tell me from top to bottom what's the behavior? Okay. So I heard a false. I heard a false. True. False. Do we all agree? Okay. Now remember, we're not comparing P and Q. Jaylee, you okay? We're comparing the negation of P and Q. So the only way we get a true for an intersection is if they're both true at the same time. Okay, good. Okay. All right, let's try this next one here. Okay. So we have the union. Okay, so this symbol right here is the union. Now, typically, I wouldn't go ahead and write them out, but we also have a new student, and I want to try to get him as caught up as much as possible. What's the key word for the union? Or. Okay. Everybody notice we have a new student in the back, right? Say hi, Cade. Cade's like, I'm so happy to be back. All right. Now, remember, this is the inclusive. Okay, so we have P union Q, but then we have P implying that union. Okay, so if you haven't already done so, take about 30 seconds, fill in what you believe the truth values are going to be, true or false. Okay, think about what the inclusive union tells us. No bar. Yes. Anybody in here a fan of video games? Anybody ever played the Arkham series? Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. I mean, they're very good games if you're a Batman fan. But another reason that BVS very much appealed to me is when Batman goes to rescue Superman's mom. That scene is pretty much a live-action version of one of the Arkham games. It's pretty awesome. Has anybody not seen Batman versus Superman? Oh my God! What? Oh my God! You notice I don't say anything bad about Marvel.
I would rather waste my time on Batman versus Superman as opposed to Justice League because that movie I have never been so bored during the movie.
Oh, my heart is hurting. Oh God.
Except for Baby Christmas with the Grinch. Yeah, they're all.
I'll agree that's a bad movie. I didn't make it halfway through that movie. Why would you do that? Just say, you know what? We wanted to go. We wanted to go on vacation. Why do all that? Just for the sake of comedy, that's not fun.
My dad made me and my brother watch it because he was like, oh, they're like good people at the end, and then he was like, that wasn't as sweet as I thought. I remember.
No.
Kate and I were like, uh-huh.
All right. So P or Q. All right, let's see. Lizzie, can you tell me going from top to bottom, what'd you put? Okay, so I heard true. True. False. Okay, would you guys agree? True, false. Okay. So, Amy, what's the last column? Now, remember, order matters if I take P and I imply this union. Okay. So remember, this last column here is now an implication for these two previous columns. So I want P to imply this group. That's where we got our last column from. So let's go through it one by one. What if I get true? What does the implication tell me? True. Okay. True is another true. What about false true? Wait a minute. I thought if you got one true and one false, that was the false. Remember, what matters? The order matters. It has to be true, false. This is a false true, so that's still a true statement. What about false? That's true. Okay. So there you go. If in a truth table, and these vocabulary words are definitely going to come up from time to time. They came up last year on the paper exams. If your final column is nothing but truths, that's what we refer to as a tautology. That means that is a valid argument that you were just looking at. Okay, a compound proposition that's always true regardless of the truth value of the individual proposition. So what it means is we may have gotten a false along the way, but ultimately it is a valid argument. So it's a tautology if every one of the last values in the column is true. Okay, so let's do this one. Use a truth table to show that the compound proposition P or what P? Not P, negation, is a tautology. Okay, well, let's see here. The negation of true-false would just be false-true. Okay, now remember, this is the inclusive, so as long as one of them is true, the statement is true itself. So I have true, true. Okay, because this final column ended up nothing but truths, that's what we refer to as a tautology. Okay, that is a valid argument. It is logically sound. Okay. All right, well, I got 2:05, so I think that's a good place to stop. We don't have much more. I don't want to rush through just to finish it, but we'll finish this up tomorrow, and I'll even go ahead and give you some time in class to start working on your assignment if you haven't already done so. Okay. Remember, when's the assignment due? Okay, Thursday, so you got plenty of time. There's no rush on that. Okay. Now, because you also have some time in class tomorrow, I would say probably a good at least 45 minutes to work on the assignment. That means you really don't have any homework tonight, so you could go watch Batman vs. Superman.